How's it going? How's it going, lad? Gonna see if we have what we need. Yeah, this is good. Hello! I'm adding a thing. Boom. Thing added. Playing Destiny 2. Well, you know what? Good for you. You're playing Destiny 2. You're having a good time. That's all that I ask. Because you deserve to have a good time. You're a good lad. Alright, so what the hell is going on here? What are we doing here? What is our purpose? Well, sorry I'm late because I'm sick to death of eating fast food. I'm poor as fuck, so please donate to the Ko-fi. Please, for the love of God, I'm poor. Because that trip killed me, money-wise. And what else are we doing here? Well, 10th edition officially comes out in 5 days. Box Leviathan comes out in 5 days, which I will be doing a stream on. But I have had a lot of people ask me, what the hell is 10th edition? What the fuck is going on with 40k? They've done a lot of shit. That, like, I don't understand. What the hell's going on, boss? What is happening? Well, 10th edition is the new edition of Warhammer 40k. We have suffered with 9th edition more than enough, and now we have moved into a new edition with new ways to play 40, with the brand new way to play 40k. And so far, people have either been loving this or fucking hating it. I personally like it. It fixes a lot of the problems that I had with 9th edition. It makes it way easier to digest and understand what the fuck is going on. And what the hell people are doing while they're playing. And both streamlines and simplifies rules so that way people don't go, it actually means this in this way. So you can't shoot at my unit because technically they're 25% covered by this specific terrain type, and in page 252 of the rulebook, you specifically can't target units that are 25% or more obscured by this specific terrain piece that I set up on the table before you got here. So, fuck you. Most of the people that are bitching and complaining about this right now are the competitive players whose entire lists and armies have been thrown off. Because, well, new edition, shit's gonna change. It's not our fault that competitive players can't adapt and learn a new system. So you're gonna see a bit of a dip in 40k players because I'm gonna just say it, they're whiny little bitches that can't handle it. They'll come back once they hear about a broken list that they can abuse. Note, most of these people never make it to the top tables anyway. So, what the hell is going on here? Well, Warhammer 40k 10th edition has made its rules available online. That's right, kids. You can now play whatever the fuck you want. Hey, Raffle. All of your armies are available for download for free at warhammercommunity.com, Warhammer 40,000 downloads. Note, this stream is not sponsored, although I wish it was. So, you can find the rules, the core rules, i.e. the book that has everything that you need to play the game and to understand the more complex rules of Warhammer. We also have a quick start guide for more of just your, oh, I need a quick refresher and reminder about what the hell is going on in a phase. Like, what can I do, or a simple quick way to find your new keywords, as keywords have been revamped to be specific weapon types, like precision, devastating, melta, that kind of stuff, which I highly prefer. We also have free point totals. Look at all these point totals, kids. Oh boy. Oh boy. Let's fucking go. Everything that you see here is free to download. You don't need to pay for a subscription. You don't need to pay for it. It is all here available for you to abuse at your leisure. You can actually see what armies that you would like to play before you buy into the game. And basically learn an army before its actual book comes out, if their book comes out. Hell, I don't know if they're doing codexes. I think they're probably just going to stick with the indexes. But if they do books, okay. My one complaint about these books, like about these indexes right now, is how they're organized. So this is Thousand Suns. This is my preferred army to play. So starts off rightfully with Ahriman, the Thousand Sun character for like years. And then you think, oh, then it would go into like the Exalted Sorcerers, right? No. We immediately have a tank. The heaviest tank that the Thousand Suns can throw onto the table. Then we have Predators. Then a Rhino, which makes no sense because there are other heavier armored vehicles. This is just the standard transport. Then we have Spawn, which are fleshies, which makes no sense because why are they here? That's a little bit weird. Then we get back to heavy vehicles with the Vindicator, the Defiler, and then we get to the Exalted Sorcerer, which is another leader choice. I.e., if you're going to get these, beware, they're poorly organized right now. I don't know if GW is going to fix that, but who knows? That's one major complaint for me right now, but that's basically like they just dumped these things online. So, like, organization probably wasn't their biggest worry. It was getting these things out for people to play. Which, fine, we'll play it your way. So, this is a lot different than the previous stats before, but we're going to focus on the core concepts first. We're going to focus on this specific page first. So, missions is basically how you play Warhammer 40k, like what game types you're going to play, whether it be kill, capture objectives, so on and so forth. Armies, you just pick your army. Units, those are things in your army. Data sheets and keywords. Data sheets are basically this stuff here. And keywords are special things that your army will have. So like it's infantry, mounted riders, tanks, monsters, titans, so on and so forth. This is another thing, is that like this is also poorly laid out. Like, why is this here and why is this here? If this makes no sense, these should be later down in the book. This was a complaint that my wife had. Flying first strike. Ha ha! Yeah. We do have keywords fly, and we do have keywords first go first. So we now have dice, a dice thing here that tells you basically like, hey, we're a D6 system, but sometimes we ask you to roll a D3. This is how you roll a D3 on a D6. Perfect. That is absolutely set in stone. So, we also have rerolls, which is basically just like as it says, you can reroll dice. However, they're unmodified dice. The results after rerolls, but before any modifiers. So this is basically like the dice roll that you get. So I roll a 4, and if I have a +1, it becomes 5. Okay, so rough relationship applies. Sweet. Yep. A dice can never be rerolled more than once. So if you reroll a dice, you have to take you have to take what you rolled, even if it's worse. You must reroll all dice if several need adding together. So basically, if you're rerolling a roll, you are rerolling a group of dice. So like say you're rolling a charge, you roll 2d6 for a charge, you reroll both those dice, regardless. You don't reroll one, you have to reroll them both. Rerolls are applied before any modifiers, as basically it reiterated up there. So, how is a game of 40k gone through? Well, just like in Magic, just like in Yu-Gi-Oh, we have phases. We have the command phase, which is where your units do like their special abilities, like say, oh, I, a superior captain of the 4th Company of the Ultramarines, bestow upon thee the power of rerolls for this turn. Or you do bravery tests, leadership, battle shock. If your unit is dealing with some shit, basically see if they're brave or they're pissing their pants scared. You then have movement. It's self-explanatory. You have shooting, which is self-explanatory. You have the charge phase, which is where you decide what units are going into close combat and which units are not. And then the fight phase, where the units that have charged that made it into combat are now punching each other in very funny ways. And then after that, you will pass turn to your opponent, who will then go through their own step, and then you would end the battle round once their turn is over. There are 5 battle rounds in a game. Okay, so command phase. As I said, at the start of your command phase, before doing anything else, both players gain 1 command point. Command points are strategic resources that you can spend during the battle to use stratagems. You can find out more about stratagems on page 41 and 42. I'm your teacher now, kids. Pay attention. Listen up. You want to play 40k with me? You gotta learn these quick. I'm kidding, not quick. Take your time. Then, if you have any other rules that need to be resolved in the command phase, you do so now before progressing to the battle shock step. Both players gain 1 command point. Resolve any other rules that occur in the command phase. I like this specifically in the rulebook. I like this little box because it just takes what it says up here and then condenses it down as a quick reminder. And then it's just a quick reminder when you go back to the rulebook. Too many times in 9th edition, we would have to go back into the rulebook and reread paragraphs to figure out what one thing did. This shortens down that time a lot. Me and my brother played a game of 10th edition on Saturday. It took us 3 hours to complete. It would have taken us way less time, but we were learning the game as we were playing. Yep, move range, move to melee, melee. Now, my wife did bring up a problem, and this is for people that are more like linearly brainwaved. Why the fuck is the charge phase its own thing? Isn't charge just of movement? Yes, charging is a movement. However, 40k tends to focus on it like this. As you have your command phase, so people are being commanded to do stuff.
Movement phase, this is where everybody's moving to get into better positions and better positions to charge. Shooting phase is used to either clean up, take out targets that are going to hamper your charge, or need to be softened up for your charge to be way more effective. Then the charge phase happens, so that way your units that have now softened up the enemy, the units that you want to charge, have an easier time getting into combat than they would before. Some armies don't give a shit about shooting, and some armies don't care about 4 and 5 at all. Because if they get into close combat, they're in trouble. I.e., Tau and some Mechanicus-built armies. Some armies just don't want to get stuck in, and that is perfectly fine. If you're playing Orcs, the charge phase is your best friend. If you're playing Tau, this is your worst nightmare. But, Battle Shock. What is Battle Shock? Well, for those 40k players that are returning, and for those that are new, every army has what we call a leadership check. Back in the previous edition, leadership was you take the amount of casualties that a unit had, and you roll a d6, and you roll it against the unit's leadership. If the number rolled plus casualties exceeds the number that your unit had as leadership, you lose a certain amount of models. They changed that, and thank fucking Christ they did. Leadership in the previous edition was useless, it was boring, all it did was lose additional models, and very little armies actually cared. Leadership was essentially the useless stat, and armies that affected leadership really didn't do fuck all. However, they have changed leadership for this edition, and oh my god, is it so much better. There's actually a risk with leadership now. How does leadership work? Well, if a unit starts at half strength or below half strength, so say if I had a squad of 10 guardsmen and they're knocked down to 5, they have to take a battle shock test. So you roll 2d6, and you must beat this number. You have to equal or beat it. If you equal or beat it, your unit is fine, but they must keep rolling it for the rest of the game, each command phase, because they are below half strength. What happens if they fail? Well, we have a new thing called the objective control characteristic. As you can see here on Ahriman, he is worth 1. So if I'm standing on an objective with Ahriman, he's worth 1 point on that objective. And if he fails his battle shock test, he's worth 0. He's too scared to focus on the objective. He is worth nothing on that objective because he's too busy being scared. So what does this mean? Well, he's worth nothing on an objective, and he's too scared to obey orders. So you can't use stratagems on him. So if you were going to use that command point to make him a little bit killier in battle, won't work if he's scared. However, there is a stratagem called Insane Bravery, which you can spend to immediately say, nope, I don't have to roll, they just automatically pass. Which is fine. Sometimes it's good to spend it on that, sometimes it's not. But, what happens if they're stuck in combat? What happens if a unit is stuck in combat and you want to pull them out, but they've broken? Well, that is called a desperate escape attempt, but we'll get to that later. So we also have starting strength, which is the strength that the unit starts at. And what is below half strength? Some rules refer to a unit being below half strength. If the unit has a starting strength of 1, then it is said to be below half strength, while its remaining number of wounds is less than half of its wound characteristics. For any other unit, while the number of models in that unit is less than half of its starting strength, that unit is said to be below half strength. So basically, like I said, if your unit is below its starting wound, like halfway below its starting wound count, or it has less than half the models it started with, you must take a leadership check regardless. What happens if you have a character in the unit? Well, character just adds a number onto it. So if you have a character attached to a unit of 10, that's 11. If you were at 5 men, you were then considered to be below half strength. That is the PTSD stat. Yes, it is! Guess what, guys? Watching your friends get eaten and blown up is not a fun time. Movement. This is self-explanatory. This is where your units move around the board. This is where guys move up, guys fall back, guys run. You have three kinds of movement. Normal, which is just you take your unit's movement stat right here, and you move that many inches. Yes, we use the Imperial system for this. Yes, I hate it too. So you use that normal move in any direction, including vertical. Advance. You take your D6, you take this D6, you roll it, and then you add that many inches onto your movement. However, if you run, your unit cannot fire unless stated otherwise. Some armies can get around this, some armies can't. You also cannot charge if you advance, because you just ran a marathon. I do not expect you to run another one. Then we have stationary, i.e. the unit does not decide to move at all, they decide to hold still. Now sometimes holding still is a really good advantage because some weapons really want you to hold still, like heavy. However, some units do not need to roll for advance. Some units just say, nope, if you want to advance, you move this many inches instead. Like Space Marine bikes. Space Marine bikes, they move an additional 6 inches instead of rolling, which is really, really good. That's why they're fast. And units can move over other units, i.e. they can just either move through them or over them. However, vehicles and monsters cannot unless they have fly. Sorry, they cannot be moved over other monsters or vehicle models unless they have fly. However, you cannot end a model's movement within an inch or touching base to base with an enemy unit. This is what we call engagement range. This is basically for when we get into the charge phase. Advanced movements. Basically just advancing. What about pulling out of combat? So, let's say that you're a Tau player and your unit survived getting charged. For one, congratulations. You can now pull out of combat. So your unit can now fall back out of combat. The downside is units that fall back cannot shoot and cannot charge because they're trying to get organized again, unless they have a special rule stating otherwise. Anyways, Marines, looking at you, you got this ability. Congratulations, once per game. Models can move over enemy models when falling back, but you must take a desperate escape test before they do so, excluding models that are Titanic or can fly. So if your unit is surrounded, they must make a desperate escape attempt. So basically like, oh no, I'm getting my ass kicked in all different directions, and you try to bull rush through out of there. You have to roll a d6 for each model in the unit that's trying to run the fuck away. Note, this is if every model is completely surrounded. Like, there is no opening to get out. That will not let you touch 1 inch to a base. For human error or movement, something akin to adjusting rules in chess, we have wobbly model syndrome, i.e., the model is there, but it cannot stand there because its base isn't balanced very well. So, like, you just put the model to the side, but technically it is there. And you just put something else there to measure that distance. Note, when you are measuring, you always measure from the base of the model. Not, like, center of the base of the model. You do not measure from the tip. But what happens when you make a desperate escape attempt? You must roll a d6 for each model in the unit. Any roll of 1 or 2 kills a model. Regardless of how many wounds it has left, it goes down because it gets dragged down. However, what happens if your unit was battle shocked during the assault phase? Like when they got the shit kicked out of them, like they broke. It doesn't matter if that unit is surrounded, they must make a desperate escape attempt. If they choose to fall back. So, at that point, you have to decide, is it worth rolling a d6 to run away? Because this unit is now battle shocked. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. That's up for you to decide. But remember, 1s and 2s fail, regardless of how many wounds you have left. A roll of 1 or 2 is an instant death. How do I move over terrain, you may ask? Well, as shown here, some terrain goes vertical, so you have to climb. So you measure the distance to climb it. So, this pipe does not interfere with the movement because it's not taller than the model, but it does affect the movement if it is taller than the model. So, this lictor here has to move 3 inches up to get up here, using its normal movement as well. Flying models do not give a flying fuck about verticality. They are always considered to be moving flat. So, basically, guy with wings goes from here to here. Enough said about flying. Flying models do not care about terrain. They do not care about other models below them. They will always just go from point A to point B. But they must too care about not ending in engagement range. Reinforcements! Some units do not have to start on the board. Some units can start off the board. Some units can teleport in. Some units can drop in. Some units can pop out of infiltration. At the end of the movement, that is where your reinforcements come in. Reserves, a unit that starts in the battle in a location other than the battlefield. Always counts as having made a normal move in the turn they are set up on the battlefield. Any specified distance from any models apply to horizontal distance, and any reserve unit not set up on the battlefield by the end of the battle counts as destroyed. If you are not present on the battlefield, you are dead. So, what happens when a unit deep strikes? Well, your unit profile will say how the unit deep strikes. Deep striking is basically any model that shows up on the table by teleporting in or digging their way up, but they must always teleport 9 inches, well, outside of 9 inches near enemy units, but they can pop up anywhere on the board at any time in the reinforcement step. Transports! Some vehicles are transports. They're really, really cool. Units can start the game inside the transport. And transports can carry a certain amount of models. Transports can move, advance, and fall back and remain stationary just the same as any other unit in the game. But you must be within 3 of a transport if it's empty to embark upon it. And you must end And you have to move your full movement outside the transport when you are getting off of it. So, a unit can embark within friendly transport if all of its models in a normal advance or fallback move within 3 of that transport. A unit cannot embark and disembark in the same phase. So, you can't just hop in and then hop in. Like, you can't hop out and then hop in again. Very good. Unless stated otherwise. Tau, you can do that. If a unit from your army starts your movement phase to embark within a transport, that model can disembark in that phase. When the unit disembarks on a transport model, set it up on the battlefield so that it is wholly within 3 of that transport model and not within engagement range of any models. If, for any reason, a disembarking model cannot be set up on that model's unit, cannot disembark. So, if you can't fit your full squad outside the transport, they can't get out. Period. So that means that you can't have models like stacked up on top of each other. They all have to be able to stand outside the transport. Units that disembark from a transport model either remain stationary this phase or has not yet made a normal move or fall back, advance move this phase, then can act normally. They can normal move, advance, shoot, declare charge, etc. In the remainder of the turn, such disembarking unit cannot choose to remain stationary. Here we have the more quick notes version. Units that start your movement phase embarked within a transport can disembark this phase provided their transport has not advanced or fallen back. If a unit disembarks before its transport moves, it can act normally. If a unit disembarks after its transport moves, it cannot move or charge this turn, but can otherwise act normally. Disembarking units must be set up wholly within 3 of their transport and not within engagement range of enemy models, or this unit cannot disembark. Units that disembark this turn cannot remain stationary. So you get out, you're moving regardless. However, there are some units with a rule called Assault Ramp. It doesn't matter if the transport moves, you can still charge out of it, because it is designed to do that. Now, this is a little bit later down the line. What happens if a transport is destroyed? If a transport is destroyed, any embarked units must disembark, regardless. Roll 1d6 for each model that disembarks. For each one, that model suffers 1 mortal wound, i.e., you got hurt getting out because either you took the hit inside the transport, or something else happened. Until the start of its controlling player's next command phase, the disembarked unit is battle shocked, regardless of your unit's strength, how it starts at. You are fucking scared after surviving your vehicle getting blown up. Until the end of the turn, the disembarking unit counts as having made a normal move and cannot declare a charge. So, sucks to be you. Emergency disembarkation. Sometimes there's an emergency and you have to get out. And sometimes you can't deploy all your models. A unit disembarks a destroyed transport and cannot be set up wholly within 3 of it, must perform an emergency disembarkation. Must be set up wholly within 6 of it instead of wholly within 3. Suffer 1 mortal wound for each roll of 1 to 3 instead of each roll of 1. So basically it gets harder and harder when you can't set up your units normally. Any disembarking models that cannot be set up are outright destroyed. Shooting phase! This is very self-explanatory. You can shoot shit. That is the point of this phase. A unit is eligible to shoot unless the following apply. That unit advanced, that unit fell back. Before a unit shoots, select the target for all of its ranged weapons. So, say you have a squad of Marines. They have machine guns and 1 rocket launcher. You must declare where all those guns are going. They do not have to pick the same. Every model in the unit does not have to pick the same target, but you must complete in sequence. So, I declare first that my rocket launcher is firing at the Orc battle wagon, while all my bolters are firing at the Orc boys in front of that battle wagon. I have declared the rocket launcher first. Rocket launcher must fire first, and then I fire the bolt guns. Always complete in sequence of what was said. It helps out everybody that you're playing with. At least one model in the target unit must be visible to the attacking model within range of the weapon being used. So, if you can't see me, you can't shoot me. Period. If you can see one model from the enemy unit, you can fire upon that enemy unit. But after that, if that model is removed and you can't see the rest of the enemy unit, your entire shooting is whiffed. Models with more than one ranged weapon can shoot them at the same or different targets, but models cannot split attacks in the same weapon across more than one target. Again, I have a heavy bolter. I have to shoot all my shots from the heavy bolter at one target. I can't split. It's 3 shots at 3 different targets. All of them have to go into the same asshole. Models in the same unit can shoot at the same or different targets, like I said. Lone Operative. This is a special rule for characters. If a character has the Lone Operative special rule, no one outside of 12 can target them. Period. So, if you have a character just with the Lone Operative ability who's hanging out, anybody outside of 12 can't shoot him. But when they're inside 12, he's open season. So, how do I shoot? Well, each one of your weapons has what's called a ballistic skill. Your shooting attacks will hit on what is said specifically. Ahriman here has a bolt pistol. He hits on a 2+. So, you take a dice, on a 2 and higher, he hits that target. However, how many attacks does that weapon get? Well, you look at the attacks here. He gets 1 attack with the pistol. It is within range 12, so anything within 12 inches he can shoot at once. Then, you take the strength of his gun and the toughness of his target, which is up here. You compare if the strength is equal to the toughness, it is a 4, 5, and 6 to wound. If the strength is stronger than the toughness, but not double, it's 3s. If it's double, it's 2s. And reverse idea for if the toughness is stronger or double the strength, then you wound on 5s and 6s. If the unit is beyond 12 inches from Ahriman, he cannot shoot at that target. They are out of range. But they are within 12, yep, he can pop them. Then, what happens if you're getting shot at and your opponent manages to wound you? Well, this is where you have to make an armor save. Woo! Armor save! How does armor work? Well, your armor save is 3+, so naturally, you assume that you have to roll a 3 or higher on the dice to save. Not as yet, my friends. For weapons, a lot of them have armor penetration that make your dice rolls worse. If I get hit with an AP1 weapon, my 3+ save goes to a 4+ save. Because you are making my roll worse. You are making my chance to save worse. So, if I get hit with an AP1 gun and I have a 3+ save, my save goes from a 3 to a 4. So now my chances to save are worse. And if I pass the armor save, awesome, excellent. No damage is done, you move on. If you failed the armor save, you take damage, and then you lose wounds based on how much damage you take. Sucks to suck. But announcer, you may be asking, what is this? What is this invulnerable save that I see down in the bottom right corner? And why does it say 4+? Well, children, some people in the 40k universe are special snowflakes, and they get special energy shields or mystic runes that protect them. Or sometimes they're just really stupid lucky. An invulnerable save is a save that you can take if it is better than your current save. Sometimes you are forced onto the invulnerable save whether you like it or fucking not. Sometimes it's better to take an invulnerable save than it is to take an armor save. A invulnerable save, most of the time, cannot be affected by anything. There are some armies in the game, some units that basically just say, nope, you don't get an invulnerable save, fuck you. However, in this instance, invulnerable saves cannot be influenced. So, basically, if you take away my armor save by hitting me with an anti-tank gun, I get a 4+ invulnerable save. Which basically just acts as an armor save from that point on. Don't apologize. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I have come here to teach how 40k is played. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Please, if any of you have a question to ask, ask away. Questions are meant to be asked. Questions are meant to be answered. If you have a question about, if you have a question about how something works, please ask it. I would rather you be taught than sitting there going, I don't know, it sounds dumb. No question is dumb. What happens, though, if a unit is stuck in combat? Well, fear not, brave adventurers. If your unit has pistols, they can still fire into combat. If you have a tank or monster, they can fire into combat. However, if it is a vehicle or tank, they must subtract 1 from the hit roll. Sucks to suck. They cannot fire weapons, though, that have blast. Or can they? Hold on. In range weapons equipped by can target 1 or more enemy units while they are within engagement range, even if the other friendly units are also within engagement range. The same enemy unit each 7 months. Oh. Oh, you can fire blast. Okay, no, you can fire blast. My bad. Sick, even I'm learning shit. That's terrifying. But yeah, so if you have pistols, you can fire into combat. However, you cannot fire anything else. Vehicles and monsters and Titanic units are an exception to the rule. And if you have a unit that's not in combat but is watching another unit in combat, sucks to suck, you can't fire into that combat unless stated otherwise. The fuck is stealth? Sometimes units are hidden on the battlefield. You got snipers hidden somewhere. You have a unit that can literally turn invisible. So on and so forth. If you are firing at a unit that has the stealth special rule, you take a -1 to hit. Because they are a lot harder to hit. However, you cannot stack +1s and -1s. If your unit is affected by a -1, they cannot be hindered further. You cannot make a unit go from hitting on 3 to 4 to 5. You can only make them hit on a 4. Just the other way around. You can't make a unit shooting way, way better. If I'm hitting on 5s and I get a +1, they only go to 4. They don't go to 3. Everything in this game is modified by 1s only unless it's AP. Here we are. We have the wound roll. Strength is twice or more than twice the toughness. It's always wounding on 2s. Strength is greater than the toughness, always wounding on 3s. Strength is equal, always wounding on 4s. Strength is less than the toughness, always wounding on 5s. Strength is half or less than half of the toughness, always wounding on 6s. What happens if I do not have an invulnerable save or an armor save? Well, there's only one more save that some units get. Feel no pain. Okay, there's a question. What's the question? What's your question, soldier? What's your question, soldier? Okay, well, you asked that question. I'm going to continue. Sometimes you get a feel no pain. Feel no pain is listed as feel no pain X, X being the number that your feel no pain can pass on. Instead of rolling a save, you roll a dice for every point of damage that that model or unit is taking. Genius is shocked, then enters point blank. Wouldn't that cause a stacking advantage? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Genius is shocked, then enters point blank. Wouldn't that cause a stacking advantage? What do you mean by that? That's a bit tough to follow there, guy. Little bit tough to follow. I hate that like my stream's a little bit behind me, but like there's something I can do about it. So while he's typing that out, so basically you roll a feel no pain for every point of damage that weapon does. If a weapon does 3 points of damage, you roll 3 dice in response to it. And each feel no pain dice that succeeds negates 1 point of damage. If you pass 2 feel no pains and fail 1, you take 1 damage still. You have a battle shocked unit. Opponent moves into close combat range. Still just a +1 to hit and not a multiplier. Yes, you cannot make a save better than you cannot make an attack better than +1. I'm learning quite a bit about playing, and I've been learning a lot of lore from Adaptus Ridiculous, so I'm having fun. Wish I had enough time to burn on model. Wish I had enough dough to burn on models, though. Well, have I a special thing for you. It's called Tabletop Simulator. It's $20, and you can play 40K on Tabletop Sim. But yeah, that's also how Feel No Pain is. Mortal Wounds. Mortal Wounds are wounds that cannot be stopped by anything unless it is Feel No Pain that specifies mortal wounds for mortal wounds. Each mortal wound inflicted on a unit causes one model in that unit to lose 1 wound. No saving throws can be made against mortal wounds. Mortal wounds inflicted by attacks always apply after any normal damage, even that damage was saved. So, essentially, mortal wounds go through all the time unless stated otherwise by Feel No Pain. And each mortal wound is 1 point of damage. Not 3 mortal wounds at once. It is three ones. Like 3 individual points of mortal wounds. Neat. Might try 10th edition on tabletop. Yep. Totally fair. Totally fine. You can find any army on Tabletop Simulator. And plus, with all the free things that you can get, you can easily play a game of 40K on Tabletop Simulator. I might actually allow my chat, I might actually allow users in my Discord or my friends online to challenge me to games of 40K with that. Deadly Demise! What the fuck is that? When a vehicle dies, or a monster dies, or a unit that has Deadly Demise dies, you roll a d6. On a 6, each unit suffers X amount of mortal wounds within 6 of that model. So, if you have Deadly Demise 3, everybody within 6 inches takes 3 mortal wounds, regardless. But you have to roll a 6 in order for that unit to explode. Weapon abilities. This is where 10th edition said, fuck your special rules, we're doing this. Your weapons are unique now. Some weapons are assault, some weapons are rapid fire, some weapons ignore cover, some weapons are twin linked. Each individual thing does its own thing. Each army has weapons that do specific things. Like the Inferno Bolt Pistol is pistol. Pistols can be used at any time in close combat or be fired with any other weapon that you have in the shooting phase. You can fire every gun that you have in the shooting phase. However, what if my weapon has devastating? What happens if my weapon has devastating wounds? Well, we go find it here in the book. Devastating wounds. Weapons with the devastating wounds in their profile are known as devastating weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, a critical wound. A critical wound or a critical hit is any dice that is a naturally rolled 6. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, a critical wound, a roll of 6 on the wound roll, inflicts a number of mortal wounds on the target equal to the damage characteristic of that weapon, and the attack sequence ends. So, we go back up here. This guy here, the Inferno Combi weapon, is devastating wounds. So, if I roll a 6 to wound with it, it does 1 mortal wound in addition to regular damage. Remember, regular damage is done before mortal wounds are done. So, 1 point of damage is saved, but you still take the normal wound. You still take the mortal wound. And yes, there are weapons that do more than 1 damage with devastating. And it can get really disgusting. And it's great. The best beginner army, in my opinion, will always be Space Marines. They basically are your jack of all trades. They're good at everything, but they're masters of none. You want an all-infantry army? You can do that. You want an all-armored army? You can do that. You want an elite army? You can do that. They do that. They're good at it, but they aren't the best. And you have different flavors of what you want. You want an all shooting army, Dark Angels are your best bet. You want an all assault army, Blood Angels are your best bet, or Black Templars. Then you have Space Wolves, which are your more infantry-based army, which also works out perfectly fine. They are the best of beginner armies, and they allow you to basically like slide into any other army that you want to do. And they are the most easy to understand and comprehend. Charge phase! How does charge work? Well, this is where units that want to get stuck in are going to really want it to be in. You can only make a charge roll. You can only make a declaration of charge at a unit that is within 12 inches because you need 2d6 to roll. Yes, you can charge multiple units. However, if you fail the charge roll, your unit does not move. They are still stationary. They do not move, period, even if you fail. If they pass, i.e. they make the distance needed, so say I need to make an 8-inch charge and I roll a 9, I move 9 inches at my declared targets. And then that unit has to end within 1 inch or engagement range of that enemy unit. And you must declare all charges before you start rolling. So, I have 3 units, my opponent has 3 units, and I declare 2 of my units are charging and 1 of them is not. I cannot just declare, oh, this unit over here that didn't charge is charging now. I must declare all 3 of those units to be charging for all 3 of them to charge. Charge roll is 2d6. Targets of a charge must be within 12, but do not need to be visible. You do not need to see a target to go charge it. If I know a fucker is behind a bush, I'm going after him behind that bush. If the distance rolled is insufficient to move within engagement range of all targets while maintaining unit coherency, the charge fails. Unit coherency is that all models must remain within at least a distance of 2 inches of each other. Cannot move within engagement range of any unit that was not a target of the charge. You can't just let your units slide into another unit that's right beside the target. You have to declare both of them, or all of them have to go into one target. If the charge is successful, each model makes a charge move less than or equal to the charge roll and must move into base-to-base contact with an enemy model if possible. Charging over terrain works the same way. You just count vertical distance. Flying models, you don't care for vertical. Now we get into the fight phase! Ha! Fighting works like this. Who goes first? The person that charged goes first. Unless your unit has fights first. If your unit has fights first, they always go first. If 2 units with fight first charge each other, the unit that charged gets to go first. Always. Charging always takes priority unless stated otherwise. Once both units are in combat with each other, you then pile in. You move up to 3, and every model that moves must end closer to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base contact with an enemy model if possible. The unit must end in unit coherency and within engagement range of at least 1 enemy unit, or no models can pile in. Make melee attacks. Your close combat weapon has attacks. It's the same process like shooting. My black staff gives me 5 attacks. I then smack with 5 dice, hitting on 2s. You follow the same logic. Same logic as shooting. Strength against toughness. AP against armor. Which models fight? A model can fight if it is within engagement range of an enemy unit. A model can fight if it is in base-to-base contact with another model from its unit that is itself in base-to-base contact with the unit. Say that I am playing Orcs, and I have charged a Space Marine unit of 5. I have a stack of 3 layers. The first layer that's touching the Marines, all of them can swing. The second layer touching the first layer can swing. The third layer that's touching the second layer cannot. Because they're trying to reach over their friends to hit you. If your model is not touching a model that is not touching a guy that is touching a guy, the guys that are the farthest away can't hit people. Because they're like, hey, let me in there! Let me in! Let me in! Each model that can fight does so using one of its melee weapons. Each model makes the number of attacks equal to the attack characteristic of its selected weapon. Resolve all attacks against one unit before moving on to the next attack. Resolve all attacks with the same weapon profile before resolving any made with different weapon profiles. All attacks declared against the target unit are resolved, even if no models in that unit remain within engagement range. What happens if I charged 2 units with 1? Well, you then decide how many models are attacking one unit and how many models are attacking the other unit. So, I have a squad of 10 Khorne Berserkers. I have 5 attack one enemy unit, and I have another 5 attack another enemy unit. Here to normal RPGs to allow game to move along faster, all the hits is strength. Yep. What happens if I wipe an enemy unit out in close combat? Well, you get to do what we call consolidation. You consolidate up to 3 inches. Every model that moves must end closer to the closest enemy model and in base-to-base combat with an enemy model if possible. The unit must end in unit coherency and within engagement range of at least 1 enemy unit if possible. If the above is not possible, each model can move towards the closest objective marker, but this must result in a unit being within range of it and a unit coherency. If the above is not possible, no models can consolidate. Here's the example. Data sheets. Data sheets tell you everything that your army needs, that your units can do. Keep them with you at all times. Deployment abilities. Some units can do shit before deployment. Others can't. When you are deploying armies, when you are deploying your army on the table, you must declare what units are doing before you put them on the table. If they are deep striking, they are off the table. If they are scout moving, they move before game begins, before turn 1 is played. Infiltrators, they can be set up anywhere on the table outside of 9 inches from the enemy deployment zone. Leaders, you have to declare where your leader is. If you have two leaders, a chaplain and a captain for the Space Marines, if they are attached to a unit, you must declare where they are. Or if they are in a transport combined with a unit, you must tell your opponent where they are being deployed. I.e., my intercessor squad with my captain are deploying inside the repulsor, which is being deployed here in my deployment zone. You must declare where everything is in your army before the game starts. Stratagems! You remember those special little dinky command points? Command points can be spent during the battle to use stratagems. All player can use the core stratagems presented here. Additional stratagems can be found in codexes and any other publications. To use a stratagem, you must pay the command point specified. The same stratagem cannot be used more than once in the same phase. So, if I use Overwatch in one turn, I cannot use it again in that phase. And sometimes it says you can't use it more than once. Stratagems are linked out by colors. If it's green, you can use that stratagem on either player's turn. If it's blue, you can only use it on your turn. If it is red, you can use it on your opponent's turn only. Here are the general ones inside the rulebook. These are ones that everybody can use, not just you. But some armies, such as the Thousand Suns, have their own stratagems that they can use that no one else can. So, both you and I can use Overwatch, but only I can use Psychic Dominion. Understood? Understood. Strategic Reserves! Some units can start the game off the table like Deep Strikers. However, when you are playing a game of 40k, you and your opponent decide on how many points are being played. We call these battle sizes. If you are playing a 500-point game, only 250 points of your army can start off the board. If you are playing a game that's 1,000 points, 500 points worth of your army can start off the board. If you are playing Onslaught, which is 2,000 or higher, only 750 of your points can stay off the board. Combined points values cannot exceed 25% of your army total. You cannot put fortifications into strategic reserves. Units that are not deployed at the start of the battle. That is what a strategic reserve is. Exactly. Green, instant blue sorcery. Red is a fuck you instant. Strategic reserves can arrive in the reinforcement step of your movement phase from the second battle round onwards. If it is turn 1, you cannot get reinforcements. Turn 2 onwards, yes you can. Those not on the battlefield at the end of the game are considered destroyed. What's the average? Average is about 1,500. So Strike Force is like 1,000 to 2,000. While Incursion is 1,000 or less. During the second battle round, set up wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield edge. From the third battle round onward, set up wholly within 6 of any battlefield edge. Cannot be deployed, set up within 9 of enemy models. Terrain! If you think you're playing on a table with nothing, you are a fool, or you're poor. Different battlefields have different terrain, but each one does a thing. Benefits of cover. Add 1 to armor saving throws against ranged attacks. If I'm sitting in a crater, I get +1 to my armor save. Does not apply to models with a save of 3+ or better attacks with an AP of 0. I.e., if you have a 3+ save, fuck you, you don't get cover. You're too big. And you also don't get it against weapons that have AP 0 because literally it does nothing to you. Multiple instances are not cumulative. If I'm sitting in a crater inside a ruin, I do not get +1. I do not get 2 +1s. I get +1. Each terrain type has a different set of rules and how they interact with the game state. Some terrain makes it harder to charge over. Some terrain makes it harder to hit. Sucks to be you, kid. However, there is an interesting thing with ruins. Ruins have a special visibility modifier. You see this building? Imagine that these two assholes are not in the middle of the building. This building is considered a square for all intents and purposes. These Marines and these Chaos Marines cannot see each other through the building. If you and I are on the opposite side of a house, we can't see each other. Even if there are windows in that building, we can't see each other through those windows. However, if your unit is inside the building, it can see me, I can see you. You cannot camouflage a fucking Nimitz-class carrier. You cannot. Aircraft! Some units are aircraft. They're planes. They fly. They don't give a shit about any terrain. However, they must move a minimum distance and a maximum distance, and they can only turn up to 90 degrees. However, what happens if they have hover? Well, then they have a hover stat. And you have to declare hover before movement. So, if I have a Storm Raven, I must declare that my Storm Raven is hovering or flying. If it's hovering, my aircraft can pivot and turn however it wants, and move however it wants. However, if it's flying, it must move as accorded to this. Aircraft can only make a normal move and can do so even when within engagement range of enemy models. If your model has the keyword fly, it can assault an aircraft. Aircraft must move straight forward at least 20 inches and can then move up, then can make one pivot of up to 90 degrees. Aircraft that cross the edge of the battlefield or that cannot make their minimum move are placed into strategic reserve, i.e. they fly off the board and then come back next turn. Muster your army. You select battle size. Incursion is 1,000 points. This usually takes up to 2 hours. Usually, if you don't know what you're doing. Strike Force is 2,000 points or less. Basically, anything over 1,000 points is Strike Force. This takes up to 3. Onslaught is 3,000. Is more than 2,000. Is anything more than 2,000. This takes a varying time because you're playing with more models. You select your army detachment, you select units. However, when you are building an army, that unit has the faction keyword you choose for your army in step 3. You have enough points remaining. Your army does not already contain 3 units with the same datasheet name or 6 units with the same datasheet name, as that unit is a battle line or dedicated transport. So, if I have Marines, I can take up to 6 intercessor squads because they are a battle line unit, but I can only take 3 Terminator squads because they are not a dedicated battle line unit. Only characters can be given enhancements, and your army cannot include more than 3 enhancements in total. So, an enhancement is basically like, oh, for my Marines, I give them Artificer armor. You cannot include more than 3 of that. Epic heroes, so named characters, cannot be given enhancements. Period. Aircraft that has been used to buzz in and out of the board is not on the board. Does it still count as destroyed? Yes, if a model is not on the table when the game ends, it is considered destroyed. And then this is how you actually play the game. Games have missions. You will follow the rules of said mission. Your table size is dedicated here. This is how big of a table you play depending on how many points. It is a standard 40k table is 44 by 60 inches. Onslaught is 44 by 90. And this is how they will show you how the game is played. You have attacker and defender. This is only one map in the core rules. This is basically for people that want to start playing right now. If a table is 44 inches and 60 inches, figure it out from there. Yep. They will let you know with these special things. Red is attacking deployment zone. Green is defender. Anything that is grayed out is no man's land. This is where people cannot be deployed unless stated otherwise. Objective markers are blue skulls. Center of the battlefield is this. This is your deployment line for defenders. This is your deployment line for attackers. That is everything you need to know when it comes to playing Warhammer 40k 10th edition. I'm glad it's been informative. But now, what the fuck is building an army? Well, kids, every army has point values. You will use these point values when building your army. Your army must contain at least 1 HQ, so 1 leader unit, and 2 troops, or 2 battle line. So, for 1,000 Suns, that means I must include at least 1 character, so 1 leader, and then, if I can find my Rubric Marines, that's Magnus. Hi, Magnus. Here we are. They are a battle line. You must include at least 2 battle line units. And remember, if they have the battle line keyword, you can have up to 6 of the same unit. So, if I'm playing 1,000 Suns, I can have up to 6 squads of Rubric Marines. But, below them, Scarab Occult Terminators. I can only have 3 of these guys. I only have 3 of the same. Okay, so if I take 4 Scarab Occult Terminator units, I'm cheating. I can only take 3 full-man squads, because they are not battle line. So, when you are building a list, oh, I'm going to take a Chaos Lord. He is 75 points. Plus, if I want to add on, let's say I give him Mark of Slaanesh, I want to give him Intoxicating Elixir. He is now 90 points. You then build up to however many points you and your opponent agreed upon, or get as close as much as possible. Sometimes you'll just have an army that can't reach 1,500 points. You'll be off by either 5, 10, or 15 points. Happens all the time. But the best part is, armies do not have upgrade points aside from the detachment enhancements. So, any weapon that you want to put in a unit, you just follow what their data card says. War gear options. The Scarab Occult Terminator Sorcerer the Scarab Occult Sorcerer's Inferno Combi Bolter can be replaced with one sword. For every 5 models in this unit, one Scarab Occult Terminator's Combi Bolter can be replaced with one of the following: a Heavy Whip, a Heavy Flamer, or one Soul Reaper Cannon. For every 5 models in this unit, one Scarab Occult Terminator can be equipped with a Hellfire Missile Rack. So, I have 10 models in my squad. I can include 2 Soul Reaper or 2 Heavy Flamer, or 1 Soul Reaper and 1 Heavy Flamer, and I can include up to 2 Hellfire Missile Racks if I have a unit of 10. And if you look here, units that have more than starting amount have different point values when you have more in the squad, but they max out. You always have to take the maximum if you're adding more to the squad. So, Chaos Terminators, 5 men start at 195. If I have 10 men, it goes to 390. You just double the point value. Some units can't have more than what they start with. Sucks to suck. Like Traitor Enforcers, they're just 2 guys. They're just 2 guys in a squad. Sucks to suck. And that's it. That's how you play Warhammer 40k. Some armies are way different than others. Some armies have special abilities that other armies don't get. Such as Orcs. Orcs are one of the more simpler, brain-dead armies out there. Orcs really like getting in close combat. We suck at shooting. We really suck at it. We are all about quantity over quality. But we get a special thing called WAR! Once per battle, so once per game, we can declare WAR, and it is a must for an Orc player that you scream it as loud as fucking possible. For the rest of that battle round that you have declared WAR, Orc units from your army are eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which they advanced. Add 1 to strength and attack characteristics for any melee weapons equipped by Orc models in your army. Orcs for the rest of that turn have a 5+ invulnerable save. And then you have a special detachment rule. Get stuck in. Melee weapons equipped by Orc models from your army have the sustained hits 1 ability. So basically, any critical hit roll of 6 adds on 1 additional hit per 6 you roll. And trust me, Orcs get a lot of attacks because there's just a lot of us. Like, 1 Beast Snag a squad is 20 models, max. And we get 3 attacks per guy. Do the Orcs still get their DACA rule? Sadly, they do not. We do not get DACA anymore. Some models have the DACA special rule, like right here. More DACA. While this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. This is something that I like that they did with 10th edition. 9th and 8th edition characters could not join units, but they were protected as long as they were within 3 inches of units that had 5 or more models. 10th edition went back to the idea of 7th and lower editions that character units can be put into regular units. However, they lost auras unless specified otherwise. Now, a character only affects the unit they are leading. They do not affect themselves, and they do not affect anyone outside that unit. They only affect the unit they're leading or themselves. So, like the Big Mech here, he allows rerolls of hit rolls of 1 for any ranged attack. And while this model is leading a unit in your command phase, you can return 1 destroyed bodyguard model for that unit. I.e., this guy is built around making sure that your unit stays alive to protect him. And each unit in each leader can only be put with specific units, such as the Big Mech can only be put with Mega Knobs, while as for Thousand Suns, Exalted Sorcerers can only be put with Rubrics. They cannot be put with Terminators. Only a Sorcerer in Terminator armor can be put with Terminators. There, in Space Marines, Primaris units can only be put with other Primaris units. Phobos units can only be put with Phobos units. Non-Primaris or Phobos units can only be put with non-Primaris or Phobos units. So on and so forth. Like here, we have the Big Mech with the custom force field. He can only be put with boys, Burna Boys, Tank Busters, Ludas, or Knobs. It creates a situation of how do you want to make a unit in your army more effective. It's not how does my character make my army more effective, it's how does my army become more effective in battle. Because some leaders are better than others at doing other things. A chaplain for Space Marines is 1,000 times better to put with a Blade Guard veteran unit than a captain is. So sometimes you might want to just consider putting a chaplain inside a Blade Guard veteran unit than a captain. And honestly, I prefer that. I prefer that way, way more than what they did previously. It stops putting characters on a pedestal. It starts making games a lot more creative because now you have incentive to put characters in different positions that you normally wouldn't have before. And it allows characters to be more than massive beat sticks. Because I was getting really sick and fucking tired of watching Gullyman, Lionel Johnson, and Gron, and all these different characters just single armies out entirely. Now, they don't do that. Now, if your character is within a unit, the character must use the unit's toughness first. So, if I have a toughness 5 character inside a toughness 4 unit, the whole unit is still toughness 4. Until that unit is gone, that character uses toughness 4, but the unit uses that character's leadership. Because it is the highest thing. So, what do I like about 10th edition? I like how everything is streamlined. I like how everything is way, way, way easier to understand. It has those small little blurbs in the rules that basically are just like, hey, over here, dumbass, look here. Fast response to what you need. Perfect. Awesome. Fast, easy to understand rules that don't take hours of just going through the book, finding the paragraph that you need, and then reading everything so that way you can understand what the fuck is going on. It's just simple, this is what this does, point A to point B rationalization. I like the new weapon keywords. I like devastating wounds. I like precision. I like how they fixed Melta. I like how they did this and that. Twin Linked is no longer double the amount of shots. It is just re-roll the wound roll. That is perfect. This is a lot better than how it was done before. I like right now that we don't have to pay points for upgrades. If something is in my army, why do I need to pay for it? That always made no sense. That might change when books start coming out, but we will see. I like that rules are free to download. I like that a lot. I like that people can just download the books online and get right to playing a game. And you don't need to buy the rulebook. You don't need to buy your army's index. They're there if you want it. I would actually prefer if this was the same way when they released codexes. You buy codexes for lore and cool art, but you only, if you download it, you only get unit rules. That's it. Which I would prefer. I like data cards. I like how these data cards are laid out. They are very easy and simple to understand, and even my wife, who was struggling with this, can understand what they're looking at. I like that only certain units can do certain things, instead of just like, Everybody can do this. You have specialized units in an army for a reason. And this puts emphasis on what your army wants to do. I like how they fixed characters. I like that characters can join units again. I like that characters can only affect the unit that they're in unless they're like an epic hero. Like Gulliman or Lionel or Magnus the Red. All these big characters with big names have their multiple abilities, but they can only choose one, and sometimes it's an aura, sometimes it's something that affects only them. I like that the rules are short and concise. And I like that each army right now only has one ability. Like Orcs, it's Wa. Regardless if you're playing Death Skulls or Bad Moons, you get Wa. Sure, you can't bring Ghazghkull if you're playing Bad Moons, because then you're playing Goth Clan. But, hey, it's your army again. That is something I fucking hated when it came to the previous edition. You had to pick which faction your army hailed from. It didn't matter where they came from, they would always hail from somewhere. It made sense for Space Marines, but didn't make sense for everyone else. And it just felt weird. It wasn't your army. But now it feels like your army again. Which is really, really fun. And I like that creative angle of 40k again. Things I do not like, though. I do not like how these books are laid out. They are poorly managed, and they're all over the place. I have to go digging for some units, while I don't for others. It should have been organized like before. Commanders, battle line, elites, fast attack, heavy support, transports, lords of war. That's how it should have been organized. But no. They are organized completely weirdly, and it's really, really annoying trying to go through downloads, trying to find the unit that you need to read on. Sure, with memorization, this will it will cut down the time to go back and look. But this is annoying right now. Especially when, if you're in a competitive scene and you're on time, you can't be spending your time doing that. That's annoying. I do not like that stratagems are still here. I am grateful that they are fixed to a degree and that everybody starts with 0 and only gets 1 command point a turn, unless stated otherwise. Can't do that with a phone there, my guy. What do you think of the Lion since he's come back? He's essentially Captain Genocide from his nap, and now he's a little more lenient. His return is kind of lukewarm at best. He just kind of shows up with the Blood Angels. And that's kind of boring, honestly. I really wish he had a little bit more fanfare for coming back like Gilliman did. But he showed up at the end of an edition, not the start of it. I do like that he did forgive some of the Fallen, because, again, some of the Fallen were tricked into it. And it's a lot easier to forgive someone who was tricked into it than who willingly did it and then realized their mistake. I do not like stratagems. I fucking hate them. Because they're just not fun. They're further special abilities that armies can do and that I or others have to memorize. And it gets really, really annoying. And I don't like that. I much prefer how Horus Heresy did it with reactions. You get 2 reactions a turn, unless you have a Primarch, then you get 3. But reactions were just like, oh, if your opponent does this, you can do this in response. Once, but only twice. And you can only use one of those per turn. So if I overwatch 1 turn and return fire 1 turn, I can't do that again. And I overwatch, and I can't Overwatch again, or if I return fire, I can't return fire again in the same turn. But yeah, so far, I'm liking what they did. There are some other units that got like horrifically nerfed, like the Tau Breacher team. They got hit hard because how they worked originally was that they were 14-inch guns, and they got stronger the closer they got. Now they cut off the middleman and just made the gun 10 inches, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1, which is kind of boring.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. I'm heading to D&D.
I love you.
I love you.
Did you put everything away?
No, but I'm gonna throw a lid on the food and just shove it in the fridge for now.
In the pan?
Yeah. I can swap it to a sealed dish later.
Okay, did you put the grocery bag away?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay, but yeah. That's everything. If you want to play a game of 10th edition, now is the time that you can. You can play them in your local store. Your store might have the Leviathan box pre-built, so that way you can play a practice game of Warhammer 40k with Space Marines versus Tyranids, with their data cards available for you to play. Both sides are equal point value, and you can try out the game there, or you can play a game by downloading the rules online at Warhammer 40k Downloads. Or, if you have no money to play, you don't have any models, or your friends won't let you play with theirs, you can go online, buy Tabletop Simulator, and play Warhammer 40k 10th Edition through that. There are mods and resources there available to new players that want to try. This is a very exciting time for Warhammer. This is a much better streamlined edition. I am seeing people be hyper excited for this, and new players are ready and raring to go to get into the grim darkness of the far future. I am very excited to see how this edition is going to play out. I really, really hope that it doesn't fall into the same pitfalls, traps that 9th and 8th edition did with constant rules bloating. I fucking despise that. There will be edits and additions done, because sometimes you just need to fix a broken rule. Which army is good with shooting? I think I want to start with the shooty army. For Space Marines, regular Marine armies and Dark Angels are the best for shooting. Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and Black Templars are not good for shooting. There's also Death Watch, but Death Watch is a little bit more complicated because their kill teams are highly customizable squads, which can throw beginners for a loop. But this is a really good time for anyone who wants to get involved into Warhammer 40k. I have said that the rules right now look very beginner friendly. They are very easy to understand with very easy keywords to reference back to and to memorize. It is very easy to understand what Devastating Wounds do and what Precision does. I like that very much. They took the idea from Magic and used that. Magic had a very good idea with keywords in that regard. And they're all quick reference sheets. If you don't want to go hunting, if you don't want to go jumping into a 60-page document, they have the Quick Start Guide, which is only 4 pages long. Tells you everything that you need to know. Boom. Everything right there for you to know. You don't need a rulebook to play. So, that is Warhammer 40k 10th edition. I played with my brother, and granted, I steamrolled him, but that's because he built an army that was built for objectives, not for murder. He also dropped a ton of points on a Storm Surge, which isn't recommended. So, yeah. Let me know in the Discord server if you're going to get into Warhammer 40k 10th edition, or if you're watching this stream after it's done. Let me know in the comments below about what army you want to play, or what army you're going to play. What army are you excited to see in Warhammer 10th edition? What are you excited to see in the lore? I would love to know. Oh, but until then, my friends, I will talk to you all later. I don't know if I'm streaming tomorrow. I'll let you all know. But don't forget to donate to the Ko-fi. Please don't forget to donate on Twitch, Patreon, whatever the fuck. Please share this stream to your friends, your family, all those other people that need to know. Oh, but I love you all so much, and I will talk to you all later.